Welcome back. The Democratic Alliance has dismissed reports of tensions within the party following yesterday's announcement of the party's reshuffle in its parliamentary caucus. Now, most notable of the changes is the removal of Natasha Mazzone from Chief Whip to now represent the DA in the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. Now, she is replaced by Siviwe Gwarube, who became an MP in May 2019 and in 2021 was elected the party's Deputy Chief Whip. Now, some members of the party say that the change should be seen as an honor for a young black woman who has risen through the DA's ranks. Siviwe Gwarube is our guest this morning and she joins us now. Siviwe, good morning. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina, and good morning to your viewers. Thank you very much.
First off, congratulations on your new appointment. And how are you feeling at this moment?
Yeah, I think firstly, I am honored to be leading a caucus of 96 members in the National Assembly. It's not something or responsibility that I take lightly, but more importantly, Sakina, I think a lot of South Africans, I think as a country, we're at a crossroads where, we've got crisis levels, unemployment, and over 30 million South Africans are living in poverty. And so for me, it is using this opportunity to say that Parliament needs to be the center of the people's business. For too long, Parliament has been very detached from ordinary South Africans and some of the issues that they are facing. And now it's high time that it becomes the center of the debate of the things that matter most to South Africans. So I'm looking forward to the challenge. I have no doubt it is going to be as challenging as anything like this would be. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to championing some of the things that I think are really important that should be really coming to the agenda of Parliament.
So what are those things that you will be championing?
The first thing, I think, on a broadly speaking, Sakina, I think, number one, we need to make sure that we are strengthening the oversight arm of Parliament and that we are making sure that Parliament really fulfills its role of being an institution that holds government to account on behalf of the people of South Africa. I think if you read any volume of the Zondo Commission reports that came out in the past several months, you realize that actually Parliament was on the dock as much as some of the people that were in that commission, because through its inaction, we actually aided and abated big parts of state capture. And in fact, often it was said that had Parliament acted and done its job, large parts of what happened under state capture wouldn't have happened. And so I think for me, the first big agenda item is to extrapolate a lot of what comes out of the Zondo Commission to say, how do we strengthen our rules? How do we make sure that some of the oversight mechanisms that are in the rules are utilized? And that's the first thing. And the second thing, I think, for me is to, as I said, bring some of the big issues that are facing South Africans today at the center of debate in Parliament. It's not good enough for us to, go on with our knitting when people are crying about a cost of living crisis outside. That is what should be discussed and at the forefront. And then, of course, Sakina, it would be amiss. There are some timeless issues that are now before Parliament. The issue around the president's Section 89 inquiry process, Section 89 impeachment inquiry process, our request to the Speaker to establish an ad hoc committee to look into the Phala allegations against the president. That's something that's going to be high up on the agenda in the term that we're coming up as the president comes to answer questions in the House on the 30th of August. So those are some of the things that I'm looking to really champion over the next couple of months.
So, interestingly, as you say, one of the issues you'd like to foreground in Parliament is matters that affect broader South African society. Now, in saying that, I'm reminded of one of the questions that the DA has been grappling with for a very long time, where there's always been a question about whether the DA actually cares about the majority of South Africans or whether it only cares and only prioritizes the needs of a white minority that it actually serves. So how are you going to address that? And what sort of issues are those that you wish to foreground?
Look, I think firstly, Sakina, we must never dismiss perceptions because perceptions exist for a reason. But we must always try very much to counter them with facts, especially when the facts are contrary to those perceptions. I think the DA has proven over the past couple of years that where we govern better. It's not something that we just say as a slogan in the organization, but independent indices across the country will tell you. The auditor's report, service delivery indices, and the like. And the only reason that is the case is because the DA actually understands that what needs to be done in government needs to be done, firstly, efficiently and without corruption. And so I think that when you look at the service delivery package, particularly those that for those who are poorer, particularly in the city of Cape Town, you will see that it far outweighs the allocation to any suburban area in the city of Cape Town. And you also see that in some of our new metros, in the city of Johannesburg and the city of Tshwane, we are really ramping up service delivery. Because ultimately, Sakina, people want to be able to live a life of dignity and be able to, pull themselves out of poverty. And I think it's a huge part of the DA's priority. So when we bring those issues to Parliament, when we bring service delivery issues, we bring so with confidence that actually where we govern, we are doing our best. We are not perfect. Because, of course, that's not the standard that we can simply say we are perfect. But I think if you look at an objective scale, the DA has done better, but not to necessarily compare ourselves to the ANC, because I don't think that's a standard that we should strive for.
So I think something that you're also very acutely aware of, Siviwe, is that when it seems to have become a norm now, that when the Democratic Alliance makes leadership changes, the race factor is brought up. Again, this week, you had another high-profile resignation from the Democratic Alliance. How do you feel about that? And also, speaking to your appointment now, was that something that you had expected?
Thanks, Sakina, about that question, because I think it has come up quite often over the past 24 hours. So I want to address the first part. I think people mustn't be misguided into thinking perhaps this was some kind of PR exercise. I've been the Deputy Chief Whip over the past year, and before then I was a spokesperson on health in Parliament. And I think I've really earned my stripes, and I think this is something that was a logical step up for me. And so that just to deal with that with that aspect. But on the issue around the race question in the DA, I think number one, Sakina, the other issue is that we must always be open to people changing their minds and people saying that while I believed in this before, I no longer believe in this now. We must also allow people to come and go within political parties. We must allow people to leave politics to go and do different things. Some of my former colleagues have decided to start grassroots level movements and the like, because ultimately there's no monopoly on how we're going to change South Africa and how you want to serve in South Africa. But I do think it's important that when people do leave, Sakina, that as a leadership in the DA, that there is a level of introspection, that are we creating a culture that is conducive to people thriving? Are we creating a culture that really is accepting to a lot of people? And so for me, I think what is the commitment to my caucus going into this position and my commitment to South Africa is that now as a leader in this party, it is my absolute mission to make sure that we have an inclusive caucus, and that we also have an organizational culture that is something that people can really identify with. I think it would be amiss for any leadership or any political party to not introspect when people leave. And I think that it would be amiss for them not to make the necessary changes where necessary.
And speaking of introspection, what about introspection on the part of the party? When you have so many black senior leaders of the party leaving within a rather short period of time and at regular intervals, as it were, does that not concern the party? What sort of introspection has the DA done on that? And what sort of introspection have you done about that, Siviwe, in coming into such a powerful position in the party now? And of course, I'm sure you've heard it, where people are saying, well, you are now installed as a token black, as it were, to try and basically deal with all of these perceptions about the DA and the race question within the DA.
Well, first, I mean, I think it's deeply offensive when South Africans or some parts of South Africa label somebody who has worked hard for a position as a token. I'm nobody's token. Sakina, as I've said, I've earned my stripes. And the introspection that I'm doing is, how do I, as a leader, contribute to making sure that the organization is what it needs to be? And I think absolutely. I mean, I think, you asked the question of whether or not does it bother the organization of the party. I think it would not be accurate to say that, the DA is not bothered by people that do leave. But we also have to understand that, politics is a contestation of ideas, Sakina, and sometimes your ideas prevail and sometimes they don't. And also we're in a current environment right now in South Africa where it's a forever changing environment of quicksand in politics, where there's new party entrants in the market, where there are organizations that are coming up. And so while I'm saying that there is an obligation to introspect, and I think there is introspection, whether it is through policy conferences, whether it's through federal council meetings, there is introspection that is happening there. But we must also be mindful of the fact that things in South Africa politically are changing. And we must give people the space to be able to find themselves where they would like to serve. Because I am of the belief that nobody has the monopoly on whether it is political parties that are going to bring about the change we need or organizations. And I think it's a plurality of all of those things. And so that's what I'm arguing, that it's a myriad of things. And I'm confident that the party is doing the introspection, and to dispel the myth that, whenever somebody rises through the ranks of an organization like the DA and they happen to be Black, that somehow it is tokenism. It's deeply offensive, and I take exception to that, because I truly am confident in my skill set and my ability to lead this caucus.
But what is it about that contestation that seems to drive away Black leaders in the Democratic Alliance, because you don't see the same sort of en masse, exodus of white leaders in the Democratic Alliance? So what about that ideological contestation is pushing away Black leaders?
I don't think it is about the ideological contestation that's pushing away Black leaders, Sakina. I think that, as I said, to be fair to the DA, that, when Black leaders in the DA do leave, it is a far more publicized matter than if any other leader decides to pursue any other career choice. And so what I am saying is that, yes, there is an obligation to introspect, and I am confident that the party is introspecting on an ongoing basis, and wanting to find out how do we retain our talent as much as possible, particularly as we head towards 2024, which is a landmark election. But at the same time, Sakina, also understanding that people are going to come and go. This is the nature of political parties. It happens to other political parties all the time. And so I think it has been an albatross around the DA's neck, something that, of course, we've got to also work hard to dispel. But I think disproportionately so, because I do think that people must be able to leave and pursue their own, and whether it's even in another political organization. I think that it's wrong to think people can't change their minds. Whatever you were believing in 2005 may not be what you believe in now. And you should be able to change your mind about your political party, about who you vote for and the like. And so I think there has to be more of an acceptance around that. And that's what I'm arguing.
So just coming back to what happened this week with the opposition parties who basically gathered and basically decided that they want to hold the president accountable for what happened at Phala, talking about parliamentary processes and maybe using the courts as well as an avenue to ensure accountability. Why did the DA not participate in that?
Look, we have been very much, I've personally been part of the joint opposition meetings with the opposition parties, and the discussions have been around broadly, and there has been massive alignment here about how do we strengthen the oversight role of Parliament, but also in particular, how do we get to the answers of what the president must do, or at least the answers from the president around the Phala allegations. The only difference that we have had is the issue that the DA has held that it is important that the ATM has now moved a Section 89 inquiry, which is an impeachment process in Parliament. And so it's quite important for us to give weight to that process. It's also quite important to give it the runway that it requires. It has just started, and it would seem to us that it would undermine that process when you simply throw in a Section 102 motion of no confidence in the president simultaneously. And so this is not about disagreement. I think this is about tactic, and it's also about sequencing. Our view is that if you are using this lever of holding the president to account through the impeachment process, let's see that play itself out, so that we're not even seen as simply opposition parties that are simply trying to we don't like the president, so we're trying to get him out. It's not about that. It's about accountability, and it's about the rule of law. Secondly, Sakina, we've argued to the opposition parties, and I was heartened to hear their support, the unanimous support for this. We have requested the speaker for an ad hoc committee. You'll remember years ago where there was the Nkandla ad hoc committee, which had powers to subpoena witnesses. That's when we learned about the fire pool. We had the ad hoc committee going to do oversight visits. Our view is that that committee is best placed to get the answers that we need from across all state entities, from the president himself, from state security and the like, because ultimately South Africans want to know what happened on that farm throughout that entire scandal. So it's about, it's like I said, it's not about differing on what needs to be done. It's about how do we go about it, and how do we take South Africans along with us.
Just a final one, the DA's view. Do you think that the president ought to be impeached?
Our view is that those allegations need to be tested. There is a huge question that the president must answer. There are a lot of gaps. We haven't obviously seen the answers he's provided the public protector in her investigation. Our view is that there are grave allegations that are facing the sitting head of state, and they need to be tested. And once they are tested, then we need to consider our options. Because, of course, the impeachment process, Sakina, is a very objective one. Should the president be found to have broken the law, he needs to be impeached. The Constitution is very clear about what the criteria is for an impeachment. And so you can't have a sitting president who has broken the law when the Constitution is quite clear that that is the prerequisite for an impeachment. And so our view is test the allegations. Should he be found to have broken the law, then he needs to be impeached. It's as simple as that, because we can't have one set of laws that apply to ordinary South Africans and one set of laws that apply to politicians.
Well, Siviwe Gwarube, thanks for your